Hey everybody, Dr. Ray, and we're going to talk about sport simulation, specifically Zwift, which was a piece of software used in the Virtual Olympics this summer, which is a bike and treadmill simulator as an esport. Is it an esport? Do we think these types of pieces of software, these types of games are esports? And can we have them in competition? So let's first talk about, let's talk about what is Zwift. Let me show you what it is, how it works, because that might help you a little bit with your opinion about it. And then let's talk about Zwift as an esport. Already? Okay, so the first thing I want to do is let me show you what the gameplay looks like. As you can see on the screen here, you see someone biking. That's essentially what Zwift is. It's a gamified biking simulator. You can actually pass, these are all real people this person's passing up. This isn't my video, by the way, but I've been using Zwift for at least 2 or 3 years. So I've been using the software for a while, so I know all about it. So this guy is actually biking. You can train, you can do competitions or race real people. You can win prizes, just like any sports thing, right? Okay, so basically you see what it is. It's literally a guy in a game biking. But how does this actually work? What kind of control setup is there? Is this like controller, mouse, and keyboard, like League of Legends or something, or is this a little different? So let me show you what the setup is in Zwift. All right, so you can see a picture on the screen here. This is a common Zwift setup. This is like the cheap setup. You see someone has a computer. That's where they're playing. And then they have a real bike. You use a real bike, like your bike, like whatever bike you have at home. If you have a mountain bike, ideally a racing road bike or a triathlon bike is what people use to do this. And then they have, notice his back wheel is on this metal contraption. That metal contraption is called a trainer, a bike trainer. And basically what it does is it lifts your back wheel off the ground and allows you to pedal your bike just as you were anything else. And the cool thing about these trainers, there are cheap ones, first of all, they're like under $100 on Amazon. And then there are ones that are like over $1,000. But the more expensive you get, what it does is it actually changes the resistance. So makes it like you're really driving on the road. So you have to change the gears and everything, like as you go up hills in the game and stuff. It communicates with the game and makes you change settings based on the game. And the other thing that these do is that they calculate how fast or slow you're going so that when you're really pedaling, all of your statistics, like cadence, different things that you might not be familiar with, like cadence and power and speed, is communicating with the game so that it's all real. Like as fast as you pedal is like really what's happening in the game. So like you're biking in a virtual sports simulator. It's pretty cool. It's pretty easy to do, and you can set it up if you already have a bike and a computer. So first of all, Zwift costs $15 a month to play. And if you buy a cheap trainer for under $100, you have to buy like a speed and cadence sensor for your bike, or you buy an expensive trainer that has that already included into it. But it's pretty easy to set up, pretty easy to use. As I said, I've been using it for a number of years. So this is what a simple setup looks like. Obviously, you can get more expensive. You can see this is like a Zwift. This is from the company's website. This is a Zwift room. They've made it the color of the game, all orange. And it's like, the most professional kind of setup you can get. But you can see that it can get pretty sophisticated and people really get into this. It's really big in the cycling and triathlon community. And it is a game. Here's the Tron bike. Everybody loves Tron. This bike is really hard to get. It's just because it takes a really long time of climbing up mountains, up hills, incline. And yeah, so it's totally a game. Like you win stuff. You can play competition. You can race people all different times throughout the day. And then the other thing the game does is you can actually run. You can use the treadmill. So here's what the running looks like. The running's the same kind of thing. You got a treadmill and a computer. Voila, pretty simple, right? You got to have like a watch to, connect with your computer so that your heart rate and your cadence are actually connected. So it's what you're doing on the treadmill is really happening in game, but pretty easy to set up. Here's what the running looks like, just to show you what the simulator looks like. You can see they have all kinds of stats on the screen that you get into. So pretty cool, right? Sport simulator. So now that I've kind of talked about it, let's talk about these sport simulators as an esport. And I'm going to do a video where I simply talk about sports simulators as esports. But I want to talk about Zwift specifically as an esport. The hardest things with Zwift as an esport, first of all, is the expense, the barrier to entry. So what we found in esports is that the biggest games, surprisingly, everyone would say like League of Legends is the biggest, but the mobile games are bigger. The competitions are bigger, surprisingly. Mobile is just leaped ahead and grown so much. Why? Accessibility. Now, I personally hate playing on a mobile device. I really do. I think the interface is terrible. I hate playing on a small screen. I hate looking at it. But when you talk about global accessibility, more people have phones than anything else, than good high-end gaming PCs across the world. So there's a lot more people with phones. So accessibility is a huge thing when we talk about esports popularity. Next, we have, the PC games like League, Overwatch, Rocket League, all the, Call of Duty, all the big esports games, right? Dota, we have all that kind of CSGO. And then we have the console games and stuff, console like Smash and other things. So this is like a huge level up from all of that stuff, because this not only requires a PC or like an Apple TV to run, it requires you to maybe have like $1,000 bike trainer and probably like an expensive road bike and like some equipment to the bike and like an Apple or Garmin watch that connects to it. It requires a couple things to get going, or like a treadmill. Like it's not cheap. My college students, very few of them have this stuff and it has a monthly subscription of $15. So that's the first limitation of using this as an esport, is the barrier to entry. Then the next question is, what kind of audience does it have? Do you want to watch someone bike or run when you could just go watch someone bike or run? I don't know the answer to that. It's interesting. I actually enjoy the virtual stuff. I think it's kind of cool, especially when someone's on like the Tron bike, or there's some cool things about it that make it pretty neat. Other than someone, I know why you use it, because you use it as a training tool. But are you going to watch it as an esport? But I do think, we've talked about like esports as sports. I already did a video on that. You can see my opinion on that, where I said esports are not sports, esports are esports. This is a real cross between the two, and it's pretty darn cool. I really like this piece of software. I think it's fun to play. I think it's neat. I think it's a great training tool. It's a gamified sports simulation. And I think that it totally is an esport and could be something that's viewable by a lot of people and could actually have weight as like its own thing. It could be an esport that is a sport, or what we call like a physical esport, whatever we want to call it, happen to call it. But I'm very fascinated to see the future of software like this, because it's not just Zwift. There's other technologies out there doing this too. This one just happened to be used in the Virtual Olympics, and I want to talk about Zwift specifically as an esport. So I do think that there's a future here with this piece of software. The company is making a lot of strides to make this very gamified and fun, so that people keep coming back, and they have a big player base because of it. They have some very large competitions. They have lots of players. It's amazing to think about. A lot of us, when we think of esports, we typically only think of the common games. But these kind of games are starting to become also what people think of when they think of esports. And we need to include these. That's the whole thing. We can't just exclude these. I talk to a lot of the people at the different colleges, and some of them aren't familiar with these, and others are very familiar with them. And there's some momentum to have these included in what we're doing, and I think they need to be. And I'm pushing for that at my university. So by the time you're watching this, we might already be doing Zwift competitions at my university. So watch for that. So I think it's a really cool area. Something to pay attention to. If you use Zwift, let me know, or any of the sports sims. I'd love to get your opinion on whether you think they can be successful in esports or not. Later, everybody.